After watching JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Feast of the North Star, and Battle Angel Alita, you may deceive yourself into thinking that you have seen all of the weirdness that the anime medium has to offer. But then you watch a lizard dude with a fully grown personality living inside him eat sorcerer's whole as he gets chased by red-headed sorcerers who turns people into mushrooms and proceeds to chew them down. But before you get any chance to question the moral implications of this subtle portrayal of cannibalism, you become mesmerized by the absurdity that is Dorohedoro. Dorohedoro is an awesome story, a great anime which I effortlessly binge watched in 2 days. A story and a world so captivating that it kept me hooked till the last minute. This is a ruthless story about light-hearted revenge, identity and friendship. Hole, a dark and decrepit place where the death is a common occurrence. It's a testing ground for magic users to use their magic on the citizens of Hole, merrily playing things with them. However, one person is immune to that magic, which is our main protagonist Kaiman. He's searching, encountering and killing every magic user in his way to find the magic user that turned his head into that lizard thing. Along with his friend Nikaido, they search for that magic user, hoping to return Kaiman back to normal. For an anime as bizarre as this, the plot plays it pretty safe and straightforward. There aren't any complicated plot threads and mysteries. It's simple revenge story. It honestly plays perfectly to the bizarre nature of Dorohedoro because with how the show is presented, a more complicated plot would only confuse the viewers because of this weird tone clashing with complicated plots. It gets so much better with the simple plot that it allows us to get the grips with the tone and the world much better with an easy understanding of the plot. Speaking of the tone, it's a unique blend of horror, action and comedy with a touch of fantasy to it. Now normally, such a blend would leave a total mess in the tone. But somehow, Dorohedoro makes it work because if there is one thing that covers the entire show, then it is that it never takes itself too seriously. That I think makes it work because it would have been jarring and confusing otherwise if it took itself too seriously. Dorohedoro is having fun front and foremost. It's having fun with the gruesome kills, the banter between our characters, and the world that our characters are living in. Speaking of which, the world that Kaiman lives in and the world that magic users live in is very interesting. You can tell how bad things have gotten since the magic users' arrival, with how the people living in the hole has accepted them and how the magic users' world looks and operates. It's all genuinely fascinating and how both worlds are portrayed are polar opposites. But I do have one small problem with this show, and that the pacing is rather janky. Now it ain't all that bad as the majority of the show's pacing is really good and the episode goes along very smoothly, but sometimes the pacing just feels off at times and it feels like we are speeding up to get from one place to the next. It wasn't to the point of annoyance, but it was noticeable when it happens. In essence, to all of these amazing things, do not expect the level of character depth and exploration in this series. After all, Dorohedoro is not the type of anime that will pull any punches, or kicks, or bites to the face. It is a grotesque anime that will show you a world that you never dared to imagine. And through this exploration of objectionable horror and sometimes shocking things will happen. Uncomfortable and uncontrollable laughter too. In a way, it is like an extreme version of Simpsons. In all seriousness, Dorohedoro comedy is top notch with its use of dark comedy, slapstick, shock comedy, situational and anime-esque comedy. Dorohedoro wisely chooses to use the restraint when it comes to the modern day trapping. Up until this point, my favorite joke was when Kaiman was carrying his own head in a jar while walking down a dark alley in the middle of a night. And if we will talk about all other characters, I love every character in the series. They all have their personality that makes them charming despite their murderer tendencies. Each of their personalities are easily distinct from one another. Whether it be Kaiman's loud voice and how he gets easily excited, or Shin's real lack of fucks given, it works well with the show's quirkiness to help define each character and what makes them so enjoyable. Like, I didn't expect N, the show's main antagonist, to have a personality that differs from the type of character this show initially represents. Even Johnson, who is a literally giant monster cockroach who only says one word, and has a personality that makes him unique from the rest of the cast. Of course, that's even if you consider N to be an antagonist because there is no good guy in Dorohedoro. just lesser evils. Despite the people of the whole and the world of the sorcerers are generally trying to live in nice society, they would love nothing but to cut each other up into pieces if you piss them off. So the show does a nice balancing act of making the cast likable without hiding their murderer intentions. Now let's talk about one of the most controversial point of this show, the animation. I was coming off Beastars when I started watching this show, so the CGI was difficult to get used to, but I got used to it after 2 episodes or something, and I can say it does look good. Sure, it's not Studio Orange level of quality CGI, but it still looks much better than the majority of the show that use CGI animation. You know what, just be happy that you didn't got the animation quality of the Berserk. So overall, I feel that still Dorohedoro has good animation quality. They could have used 2D animation, but I think this is because the characters are still expressive and they have a gritty detail to their designs, matching the grittiness of the show's world. So just imagine drawing Kaiman with 2D animation for the whole 12 episodes. It will be nightmare, right? In fact, the character designs look just great in general, as they have plenty of features that makes them unique. What sold the animation for me was the background art. It looks fucking amazing, whether it would be Whole or the world of sorcerers. The world just looks great with plenty of detail and fineness to it to really make the world of Dorohedoro, which looks gritty, dark, and sometimes that looks interesting to explore. It really does help set the stage for the world of Dorohedoro. Whether it would be a Whole or the world of sorcerers, it really seals the deal that the animation in the Dorohedoro is much better than I was expecting, even with the CGI animation. The opening is totally on crack. Just watching the opening is enough to get you high. The dynamic color palette, the absolute crazy cooking scenes, all of these things create a certain itchy vibe within me. It really feels like the animators wanted to challenge themselves and tried to capture the creativity into those 90 seconds. Dorohedoro is an anime which is mostly made by CG. This puts me off at first glance, but I'm glad that I still stayed because the CG isn't that bad either. It just took me few episodes to get used to it, and I hope that it would be same for you. The best thing is that the CG doesn't feel alienated from the drawn background, and that is important in the anime immersion. So for the conclusion of this review, Dorohedoro is something that shouldn't work but does in an unconventional way. It's gritty and psychotic, sure, but with the sense of irony to it that gives it a comedic edge. For those who were expecting a pure gritty horror show, this ain't it. It's more in the vein of horror comedy that somehow works considering the world and the setting. Its world building is great characters, fantastic animation, and amazing tone setting for the plot. Sure, it's not what I look for in a horror anime, but I am also open to pleasant surprises, and that's exactly what Dorohedoro is. A pleasant surprise. Have you watched Dorohedoro? If you have watched this anime, then make sure to comment down below and let me know about your thoughts and your reviews about this anime in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this review, then don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel because I post daily anime content about top 10 top 5 listings, anime reviews, recommendations, news, theories, and all sorts of anime content on daily basis. So if you enjoyed, please subscribe, and that was it, and I will see you in the next one. Sayonara.